Welcome to the Unapologetically Unstoppable Women podcast, the show where ambition is celebrated, not silenced. Lori, Ann, and Angie are your hosts, and each week we dive into real, unfiltered conversations about women doing extraordinary things in their lives and in their businesses. Here we don't shrink to fit expectations or apologize for our success. We share stories that are inspiring, hilarious, and always authentic, because becoming unstoppable isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and join our community of women who know that no is a complete sentence and there are no limits to what we can achieve together.
Adding on to what you said, Anne, so when something, so like if that happened to me where, Angie just didn't show up, I also choose how to respond. And do I choose with, how dare you not, be there in time? Rescheduled my day for this and blah, 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 blah. Or it could say, hey, I don't know what happened. We weren't able to get this done. Can we reschedule? Or I'm sure now I know you, Angie, and I know you, Ann. So if anything like that ever happened, I'd be saying something like, I hope you're okay. Because I know you're not the kind of people that just wouldn't show up. But if I didn't know somebody, I would try to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
Oh
Yes.
my God. And that's being authentically you.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes. Because I know, I make stupid mistakes sometimes. I forget things. I'll be, I have a meeting coming up and I'll be in the other room doing something else, and it just slips my mind all of a sudden. And then I'm like, oh, wow, that was my bad. And of course, then I absolutely do apologize. It was my bad. Things happen.
Right.
To everybody. So that's why I do like to give people a little bit of grace with regard to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and I'm a firm believer, going back, to what we've been taught since we were kids. I shouldn't say not everyone, but a lot of us is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's like, so I try really hard to treat people how I want to be treated, because I'm a firm believer in, we also teach people how to treat us, because we don't set, if we don't set healthy boundaries, if we accept things whenever they're screaming and yelling and calling us names or whatever, and we don't, so when someone does that to me, my response is, you don't have permission to speak to me that way. And it throws them off. They're like, because they expect people to, like, they want to be bullies or, cower and stuff. And I'm like, you don't have permission to speak to me that way. And I turn around and leave. Or I've said to, like, speak to me like that one more time and I'm leaving. And if they continue, I don't say a word. I gather my belongings and I walk out. And they're like, well, and I'm like, there's nothing else to say. I told you, speak to me like that one more time. That's what you chose to do. I said I was leaving. I'm leaving. But no, there's no but. I'm done. So I'm teaching them how to treat me. I'm setting those healthy boundaries, and you don't have permission to speak to me that way. I don't speak to you that way. You sure as hell aren't going to talk to me that way, or treat me that way, or say this about, whatever it is. And sometimes it's more of a work in progress, especially when it's family. That can be a little, but at the end of the day, it's just setting up those healthy boundaries. And it's like, no, I'm worth more than that. And you're not going to diminish my worth. You're not going to dim my light. You just don't have permission to do that. And I'm not going to let you sit in my space. You're not going to take up, rent-free space in my brain, thinking about it, worrying about it, whatever. So.
Good for you. I mean, I've even had to do that with clients when I was in corporate, it just, look, this is not acceptable. If we're going to get somewhere, we have to work together. That's the bottom
Mm,
line. We have to work together. And we used to, this isn't quite the same. We used to call it stump the chump. So whenever a new tech person would come in to like talk to the technical group, on occasion there would be like one person who just wanted to stump the chump, me being the chump, right? The alleged chump. And it was always kind of because it was like a battle without yelling at each other. But
mm,
it's that battle, and it's like I had to make my stand, and I had to let them know that I know what I'm talking about, and I honor that you know what you're talking about, and now we just need to talk together and get
mm,
and every time it works out, but they're not being rude to me. None of my clients have ever been rude to me. As a matter of fact, most of them we ended up being friends. Um, that's a whole different thing. I've never run into that with a client. Sometimes people I worked with, and then yes, it's just no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this, and just walk away. But you're right. We set the tone for how people treat us.
And I've even gone back when I've not behaved very well in a situation because emotions got the better of my mouth. And
Yeah.
I've gone back and said, although the words I used maybe wouldn't be words I would choose to use again, the frustration behind the words is more important than the words that were actually
mm,
said. Here's what was going on. Here's where I felt either misunderstood or disrespected or whatever.
mm,
I still take ownership for the fact of what I said because I have control over that. But let's discuss why it got said.
That's
mm.
beautiful.
So
Yes.
that's been my big thing is words are just words. You can, if somebody calls you a name, you can choose to lean into that or go, that has nothing to do with, I'm not that, and that has nothing to do with me. But why did they feel like that was the direction they had to go? What's the
Mm,
frustration that they had to tear me down in that manner?
Yeah.
Because
That's a
that's
good,
the underlying tone there is more important.
yeah. Well, you say words don't matter. And what I like to say is stress makes you stupid. So when you are under duress, when somebody's attacking you, when somebody's making you feel bad like that, you're going to spew out typically 99.9% of us will have that automatic reaction. And then
mhm,
someone will say, well, if you didn't mean it, you wouldn't have said it. Well, you might have heard those words you might have seen a movie where those, derogatory words or whatever were used. So, Anne, I love how you said, I take responsibility for the words I said.
mhm.
However, there's still this that we need to figure out, that we need to work on. I still want to know why I was disrespected or etc.
Yeah.
So, yes. So people will say words they don't mean,
Mhm.
truly don't mean
Yep.
when they're under duress. And it's because the blood goes away from your rational, compassionate brain and goes to your reactionary, competitive brain. You versus
Mhm.
me. That's the fight or flight, you versus me.
Mm, yep. I love that. And that's great information for us to all know and understand. And I was really lucky. And your listeners, if you watch this show for any amount of time, you are going to hear me talk about my dad a lot. He's definitely one of the most important people in my life and has been instrumental in developing who I am today. And one of the things he taught me clear back to when I was a little kid is when you lay your head down at night, he's like, you always want to express gratitude and different things. But one of the things he said is to evaluate your day and look to see who do I need to make things right with. Maybe I need to apologize for something I did or said or something like that. Maybe I need to make something right because I'm sitting on a feeling and it came out as anger, but the true feeling is something very different. It's hurt or, disrespect or something, but it came out as anger. And So he's like, evaluate your entire day. And he's like, and then you get a do-over, right? Like tomorrow's a new day. And you approach that person and say, look, you know, I said this yesterday, or I did this yesterday, and I need to make it right, but we need to have a deeper conversation, because there are feelings associated with, did I handle this situation wrong? Absolutely. I'm going to take ownership of that. But there's typically, I don't want to say always, but there's typically an underlying reason why the reaction came out as the reaction came out. And he's like, and so, evaluate that and have a conversation with that. And he's like, and if you can, make it right. And he's like, but there's going to be moments when you just can't make it right, because it's up to the other person to kind of meet you halfway. It's not up for you to go the full distance, right? It's like there's got to be some give and take in that. And if they're not willing to meet you halfway, then like Ann said, sometimes you just got to cut the relationship and you just got to move on and say, look, I did the best I could. Did I handle things great? Maybe not, necessarily. I own my piece of it, but I also did what I could. And they chose to not meet me in the middle. So it's not a healthy place for me to be. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And it goes back to, once again, it can make you very nervous and have those butt pucker moments, as I call them, and I think, Lori, you brought up being nervous going into your evaluation and saying, like, look, I disagree with some of the stuff that's on this paper. That's not me at all. And it can be nerve wracking, but it's nerve wracking because something's on the line. A relationship is on the line, your reputation's on the line, your whatever it is on, your integrity is on the line. There's something is on the line.
Something you care about is on the line.
Is on the line. And so, so if it's worth it to you, then you got to just, even with your butt puckered, you got to just show up and do it, right?
Well, exactly.
I think that comes back full circle to what we started talking about. You can't be authentically yourself if you don't know and understand yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Unapologetically Unstoppable Women podcast. If today's conversation fired you up, inspired you, or made you laugh out loud, don't forget to hit subscribe and share this episode with another unstoppable woman in your life. Remember, you don't have to apologize for your ambition, and you never have to shrink to fit someone else's expectations. Keep showing up, keep breaking barriers, and keep living life on your own terms. Until next time, stay unapologetic, stay unstoppable.